You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for a special edition of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Whew. So I'm reporting to you all in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, California. I am recording this right after the 65th annual Grammy Awards, where I'm currently recording this at the Biltmore Hotel. By the time you all will be listening to this episode, I'll be on a flight back to Philadelphia, where there will be much ado about this epic weekend. But I told myself the first people that should listen to this are my loyal podcast listeners and Earnestly Speaking listeners, because you all know this day was going to come and this episode was going to come too. It is a special edition, for sure, and one that I'm happy that I'm able to record in a way that you all will get this, be able to listen to it, and know what was going on. So there's so much to talk about. I mean, we could talk about what happened, like, at the Grammys, but I know there's so much stuff I want to talk about before, because I'm talking about the trip and expectations and, you know, what I thought what was going to happen versus what didn't happen and all the good things in between. But I definitely want to start there, because I know some of you have questions and you saw videos and you saw pictures and saw all that jazz on Instagram and all the fashion. Overall, I would say that this was a fabulous time. As far as I go personally, this was a great, incredible weekend. I had so much fun. I made so many great connections. I met so many people. Got a chance to promote the audiobook. Saw history. And just had so much fun. Just a lot of fun. So I'll start off by just talking about travel and getting there and arrivals and all that jazz. So I took a first class on American Airlines to LA from Philly, and it was fabulous. Like, my ride here wasn't that bad. It was a 6-hour flight, but it didn't feel like 6 hours. I don't know if it's because I slept a little bit. I was on Wi-Fi doing emails, but it was not a bad flight at all. It was really, really good. There was some good people there, and it was a fabulous time. So my trip there was great. I stayed at the Biltmore Hotel, which is where I'm recording this podcast episode at. Biltmore Hotel, fabulous hotel. It is iconic in so many ways. The first, several music videos was filmed here. Delicate by Taylor Swift. She did her music video here for that song, which is off the album Reputation. So, you know, it's an iconic video. If you see it, it's the dancing, the choreo. This is the hotel where she did that video at. I believe they said 1 Minute Man by Missy Elliott was done at this hotel, apparently. Boys by Britney Spears featuring Pharrell. That video was done at the Biltmore. Apparently Wedding Crashers might have been done here, some scenes, maybe, I think. But it's a very iconic hotel, and a lot of people I've been here. So this is one of the hotels that was recommended by the Recording Academy. So, because it was downtown, close to downtown, very nice, good quality. It's by Millennium. Millennium Hotels and Resorts is the bigger company that represents this hotel. But it was great. Great service, great bar downstairs. Oh my God, the bar was incredible. Just a lot of good energy. And nominees were here. I bumped into some Grammy nominees. I met many people who are members of the Recording Academy, voters, and different people that was giving me their take on what was going on and how people felt about the award show. And it was great to just hear different perspectives and meet and network and everything. So the moment I got here, I was definitely having a blast. So the starters, so I guess to the starting point, I'm going to break it down between the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like the name of my favorite restaurant, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the days. So Friday was about getting my feet wet, right? I went to my first industry party, which was put on by, I believe, members of the DC chapter of the Recording Academy. So it was a great mixer, Black Excellence. We was at some downtown club, and great bar, great food, great people, just lovely, nice. I came in dressed to impress. My mother was my stylist. She knew what I wanted to wear. She just was like, look, we're doing different things. Because normally, I don't know, I go up and down. Like, I'll sometimes do a lot of colors and patterns. And then a lot of times I just do like a big dark navy blazer and a regular button up shirt. And I keep it simple. But this is LA. So I had to come with a different type of energy. And the weather was perfect here. Like, everything was around 70 degrees. There was no rain. There was no extreme heat. It was a really, really good weekend as far as weather goes. But the first day I went to the first party. Then I caught up with some friends that lived in LA and some friends who was in LA at the same time I was. Okay, shout out to my girl Nina. She was here for a teaching conference, and we didn't realize that her conference and the Grammy weekend was in the same time. So we actually linked up with some of her friends who was at the conference, and we had dinner at a place called Fixin', which is a southern restaurant, soul food restaurant, which shockingly was really damn good. And for people who are trying to avoid the typical Roscoe's, chicken and waffles type of situation, this is a great alternative. I was shocked. It was in downtown. The food was really good quality. The prices were really good too. The prices were so good. Like, oh my God, the prices were shocking for a downtown location. Like, I think I got a 3-piece and 2 sides or whatever for like $22, which was just like, what? Because a lot of times, inflation, these prices, these LA prices are wild. I mean, I think every place I went to get a cocktail was like $18. But I will say that the martini glasses that they serve these drinks in are a lot bigger, and the drinks are much stronger. I don't know. I don't know if that's an LA thing, but it does seem like you do get what you pay for. Because there were several drinks I had at some of these places. I'm like, this is a one and done. I really don't need 2. So, I mean, I paid for a drink that was about twice the cost of an average drink, but I was like, okay, this is working for me. So I went to Fixin', and then we crashed at my other homegirl Aquarius, who just had a birthday, Samantha. We crashed at her. She has a nice like condo, nice spot in LA that she has. And I went over and I looked, I was like, damn, this is a nice place. She wasn't there, of course, because she's bi-coastal. She goes between the South and the East and the South or whatever, and of course the West Coast. But her place is really, really nice. I need to go back there again. But it was just nice to just catch up with friends. I caught up with one of my other good friends, Travell. We went to a place called Joey, which had a nice little happy hour vibe. I also caught up with my friend Shane. He took me to a place called Perch, which has the loveliest rooftop situation for a bar. And they have a cocktail called the Lolita, which was incredible. Definitely my favorite LA cocktail so far that I've had. It was a very memorable cocktail, definitely full of flavor. Love that was served up in the martini glass. That's like my favorite energy. And just a really good, unique cocktail. There were some really good cocktails that took me away. So I was very impressed with that aspect. But no, it was a good night. That was a good night. We went to some parties, rooftop parties, kept it cool. Friday was just like getting acclimated. Now Saturday. Ooh, Saturday. Saturday was when it was like showtime. Because I know some of you all was probably looking at Friday like, oh, it's Grammys. Where the stars? Where the big A-listers? Where the people at? Grammy weekend is interesting because it's a lot of things going on at the same damn time. You have these big A-list celebrities who have their own parties, their own invite-only situations. Then you have, of course, the Recording Academy that are throwing these like lively events that are ticketed, and they open it up to members, and members can invite guests and things. So that's how it was for me. And there were like great events, like really great events, like, Grammy Cares, funds for children and the arts and charity and brunches and things. It was so many great events that took place. In addition to all the artists and labels and, people who throw their own things, it was a lot of parties. So I went to the first event that I went to Saturday was the Grammy Fund brunch, which was very exclusive. It was at the Waldorf in Beverly Hills. Nice hotel. Oh my God, that hotel was grand. I mean, I think they had a Saks Fifth inside there, a John George's inside there. It was upscale. It was definitely giving upscale, and it was a very nice hotel. So the brunch was there. You all saw some pictures. I came in this beautiful snakeskin blazer that was simply iconic. And I had the caption that snakeskin material was made off the skin of snakes in my lives. And the reason why you didn't hear them talk this weekend because they were so silent, that's because, I was wearing them. Kind of like the way Corella said, it was almost as if I was wearing your dogs. Ha 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 ha. That scene where Cruella de Vil's 101 Dalmatians talk, she's like, woof, woof. If you don't know, you're too young. But, Glenn Close in 101 Dalmatians live action is probably one of the best live action Disney performances by an actress. My opinion. I mean, Emma Stone and Cruella is pretty damn good too. I mean, I take that away from her. But Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil in 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians is superb. But enough about them. Just wanted to be clear about that. So went to the brunch. Brunch was fabulous. Met Maren Morris, who's that, 17-time Grammy-nominated recording artist who, of course, is known for that song with Zedd called The Middle. Meet me in the middle. I'm losing my mind just a little. Yeah, she's a great songwriter and she's a great singer too. And she's a great country artist and very progressive in the genre. I mean, she's on RuPaul's Drag Race. She's all for, equity and she's a very woke artist in a good way and just very thoughtful. So it was great to meet her and she was there and it was wonderful. After that, we end up going, one of my good friends who also was the reason why I was here, John Pierre, who's interviewed, of course, in my book, The Case for Cancel Culture, which comes out February 21st. So he is a member of the Recording Academy and he brought me along to attend the event. I also, too, have interest in being a part of the Recording Academy myself, now that I am technically a recording artist because audiobook spoken word is included in the field. Along with recording artists and producers and musicians and that thing. So it's interesting. Like I went to the event introducing myself as a recording artist and, they're like, well, what do you do? And I say, I do audiobook, I narrated my book and, it's coming out and all that jazz. And they were really excited. So it was interesting to be in that space. Cause look, Viola Davis is a recording artist. She's now has EGOT, but we'll get to her in a minute. Michelle Obama, recording artist, Grammy Award winning, her husband, former President Barack Obama, Forever First Lady, they have Grammys for their audiobooks. So they're recording artists in that unique way. So it's quite the experience to go. So going to this event, introducing myself as a recording artist felt pretty good. And also true. So Saturday was, that aspect of it was dope. Then afterwards, we went to this event that the Recording Academy had. Members of Congress were there. Artists were speaking about, the songwriting and equity for artists and, performers and, basically talking about how, for songwriters specifically, they can create a song and do all this work and not get any pay. I learned a lot about the industry and I know I heard stories, I knew things already, but this is a very, very chaotic industry. And I know people say that, but just to know that there are people who were attending the Grammys nominated for these awards, some of them are doing, they're going to the Grammys by night, but they're Uber drivers by day. True story. There was a songwriter who was nominated, some other people that were nominated for Grammys for working on some big artist albums. But the return on investment that they get, the trickle down due to streaming and other things, is very small. And so a lot of them were talking about how, they have had to fight to make a decent living, that they have to take on a bunch of different jobs in order to make this work. And even if they're on a big hit album, if they're not on a top single, on a Billboard charting single, then the credits and opportunities diminish or shrinking. And that was just like, wow, like this is serious, And so it was a lot of interesting conversations. And, it was interesting to see certain Congress people. There were 2 Congress people from Pennsylvania that represented Pennsylvania and, the suburbs and near Philadelphia. So it's great to have that, but know that they're listening to what's going on, representing. But it was just interesting to hear these conversations and some of the artists that were present. So Shaggy was there. Got a picture with Shaggy. Shaggy is looking good. Okay. Shaggy has not missed a beat. Super friendly, super nice, talented. He was nominated for a Grammy for reggae performance, a reggae album, I believe. He didn't win, but he's just still doing it, and he's got hits that stick like grits. And he was just talking about how he's still getting royalties off It Wasn't Me and other songs, so it's a real thing. It's definitely a real thing. But it's interesting to see artists, who were there. There was a woman named, I think her name was Naja, who helped write Cozy off of the Beyonce album. And, she was just talking about her struggles, and she was nominated for Songwriter of the Year. She lost to someone connected to Harry Styles, but we'll get to him in a minute. But it was just an interesting experience to just see these artists in their element, and also see how they interact with the larger entities that be. So that was really great. So after that, we went to another side of LA for a Renaissance themed party. Now Beyonce was not there, but there was a girl who was there who looked just like Beyonce, favored her. I couldn't say looked like her, but very recognizable from a distance. I was like, is that Beyonce? It's just the way that the whole look, the hair, the glasses, everything. It just felt like it was B, but it wasn't. But it was a Renaissance themed party that was probably one of the nicest themed parties I've been to. That's where the silver hats came from. Not from that party, but I've been had those silver hats. But they were like giving them out to people to go to this party. Beyonce t-shirts, themed cocktails. It was just full out Renaissance energy. And it was a beautiful time because the producers of the album were there. There were some really key producers who were part of Renaissance, and they all got together and celebrated because clearly or unfortunately, they were not invited to the Rock Nation brunch. Now, they weren't showing their displeasure at that, but it was just interesting to me that while the Rock Nation brunch was going on, they had a separate party celebrating Renaissance in their own unique way. And I thought to myself, when I looked at who was at the Rock Nation, party, the brunch or the iconic brunch, I was like, there could have been, Beyonce could have not invited any of her major collaborators. I'm thinking about, Nova Wave, these artists who have gotten multiple nominations for their songwriting, wrote millions of songs off that album. But it's politics, it's politics. You just don't know, who gets to go up and speak, who doesn't, even though these people work on the project. And you find out, oh my goodness, there's so many of the same collaborators. And yeah, it was just interesting to see some of that going on. But I won't get into too much of it. But the party was lovely, very nice party. And then right after that, I had to go to the Clive Davis party, which is iconic. It was at the Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hilton Hotel, the Beverly Hills Hotel, Beverly Hilton, which is where they do the Golden Globes. But also, even more scary, is that this was the hotel where Whitney Houston was found dead in room 44. And I don't know, for Clive to do the party there, after one of his, one of the biggest artists of his career that he helped break, he helped manage. I mean, I don't know. I just wouldn't want to have it there, especially given the time period at which the incident had happened. Just the history in general. It just, to me, didn't sound like a bright idea. But nonetheless, people came, subbies came, so we were there. So I was at the hotel and I saw so many stars. And I have a couple of anecdotes. Initially when I did this podcast, I thought this episode, specifically a special edition, I thought, I'm just going to 100% spill everything. Then I realized, actually, I'm going to tell you all 90% of everything because 10% is so crucial that I'm just going to have to tell my best friends about it. I'm sorry. But I can't spill that tea. That tea is too hot. There's some tea that was super hot, and I cannot actually put that on the podcast. I mean, unless the tabloids eventually talk about some things, and then, some stuff will come out on its own, and you just be like, yes, remember that time I told you I wasn't going to talk about that? Oh, well, this is why. This is why. There's elements to this. But nonetheless, I was completely shocked by some of the behavior. I shouldn't be, but I was a little bit. So I'll start with the good people. So I saw Chloe and Haley, fabulous women. They were dressed to the nines, very nice in person, good spirit, just good overall vibes and energy. And you could tell they really are close as sisters. And she was lovely. Janelle Monáe, got to meet her. Very nice, very fun. Just a cool queer auntie, if I do say so myself. She just gets it. She's just dope in that way. She's just so fun. It's so beautiful and so pretty. Her dress was so nice. Just a kind soul. Who else on my good list? Because I have a naughty nice list. Um, Deborah Cox was nice. She had to go from point A to point B, but in spite of all of her hustle and bustle, she took time to take pictures and talk to fans, which was great. Lizzo was nice. Lizzo couldn't take pictures. They ran Lizzo right out the door and put her right to Clive Davis because she had to perform. She performed at the Clive Davis party, which is a really schwanky event, if I do say so myself. But she was there and she was so sweet and nice, but she really couldn't, take pictures. Cardi B, oh my goodness. She is a force to be reckoned with. And in a good way. She's just a force to be reckoned with. She's very nice and loves her fans down. But she's just so, she's a big deal right now. She's a big deal as an artist. So you couldn't really get close to her. But she was so nice and just really, really loved her fans and was sweet. Gayle King. Finally met Gayle King. Met her a couple of times in different capacities, but hadn't got a chance to get a photo with her, at least like really talk to her. But she was grand, very nice. Definitely, was here for the fans for sure. Um, Don Lemon was there with his husband, but Don was like not trying to talk. Like he was like a wave and then went to his place. I don't think he wanted to engage fans at all, which is, fine. Lil Nas X was there, could have got a photo with him, but was on the wrong side of things, doing too much. But he was at the party. Very, very tall in person, shockingly. Very, very tall. You could tell in the videos, but like he's tall. And, he, was super nice and, very loved as much as fans, but he also had his own crew, so he couldn't really, stop as much. Saw her, Her. Her is a kind soul again, very sweet, very polite. Was just fun to get to know. You know who slightly disappointed me, but I guess I can understand. Tom Hanks. So it wasn't that he was mean. It's just, well, it was very like he goes through this group of people. Of course, there's fans, there's people around, and he's like not looking at anybody. He's pretending like his whole body was turned against him, like he wasn't looking or even acknowledged or waved or anything. He was just like very focused on getting to the end. But like my whole thing was like, why do like a red carpet or a main entrance appearance if you're not going to engage the fans or the people that's there? So I always thought that was weird. I don't know if they wanted pictures. I don't know if it was just a paparazzi thing, but it was just interesting that like they were so not like, I don't know. Some people were just funny acting in that way. But more on that. Anita, who was nominated for Best New Artist, she's a big hit in Brazil and around the world. She was sweet. She was nice. She took a picture. She was glamorous. Um, Thinking of who else caught my mind. In a good way. So Verdine from Earth, Wind and Fire, he was there. Legend. The hair was laid. He's a great person in person. Took all the pictures. Was very just upbeat and very kind. Um, Also another legend that was there was Nile Rodgers, who is so underrated. But also those who know him and know his work, he's legendary. He was there, was very friendly. We took a picture. He was so nice and just clearly understands the moment, right? I mean, he's been in the industry forever. He's won some incredible awards throughout his career. He was just great. Smokey Robinson was super dope. He is very much, I think, not trying to get COVID, which makes sense. And he's also got this new album out called Gasms, which I want to know more about. What a title, what an album title for sure. But he was definitely in the spirit, definitely in a good vibe, as well. Now, before I get into the best person I met that really wowed me, um, before I get to that, I'm gonna tell you the worst people that I saw. So I won't say Quavo. I think Quavo clearly is trying to avoid paparazzi and not really trying to be around folks. And I get that energy because he is dealing with a lot. And, we'll talk more about that on the Sunday section of this. But he didn't talk to people, which is whatever. Now, he came with Young Miami, which is Carisha. Carisha, please, her, yeah. And so Young Money, I guess that's her name, or is it Young Money? Not Young Money, Young Miami. That's how irrelevant she is to me to a certain extent. But she was there and she just had the nastiest attitude with people. Like my friend who was there, John, who was there, he wore, first of all, fashion was on point from both of us. We were definitely the most stylish guys consistently at Grammy weekend, like across the board. Every time we went out, people were complimenting our blazers, saying our looks were good, our colors. I mean, we had a theme. He's stuck mostly with these like signature pop out colors that were like be worn as a one piece. And I stood out for the major detour and perfection of my blazers and tuxes that I wore. So we were definitely on fleek with style. But anyway, so John was wearing a pink like blazer or whatnot, and Carisha had on this dress, this like long dramatic dress that was like also had like these pink ruffles at the end. It was interesting look, but I think he was saying something like, "Oh, look, we're matching colors," and she side profiled him with an eye roll and did not respond back to him or say anything. Like she almost did not see him, and it was interesting because fans were trying to take selfies, and she was just very just playing in their face. And I think it's one thing to have opinions and, we can all debate about optics and tactics and how we do things. But I just thought that, to do your fans like that was just kind of like, especially when you're not like an A-list. It's not like you're like, Tamron Hall, who was there and I got to see her, shout out to TU Temple, she's a Temple alum. Legendary local journalist. Now she's a big shot national Emmy Award winning TV, host. So she's super dope. But yeah, she was interesting in her front. Not Tamron, but Carisha. Like Carisha, please. Someone else who was there that you all probably are familiar with me, knowing who this person is. But I saw Jason Lee a couple of times actually throughout Grammys weekend. Definitely is someone who's big on trying to get in where he can fit in. It was interesting seeing him. Like a lot of people were like, how is he in these buildings? I mean, he has made a name for himself, I suppose. But I'm just kind of surprised by the entertainment industry because I feel like everyone's like hypocrites. Like, you don't like the bloggers and the gossip columnists and the tabloid people. But then somehow, I don't know, these people get a little bit more fame or clout. And then next, they're with they're with Kamala Harris. They're with like the vice president of the United States. They're at holiday parties. They're going to the Grammys and, different stuff like that. And you're just wondering like, wow, like the kind of work that this person's history of this person's work, some of the stories, some of the things they did that like caused certain harm. And they made a brand out of that in a way that's kind of like, well, okay. But I think what's interesting about Jason, at least from my interactions, seeing him interact with other celebrities, Chance the Rapper was there and, there was an interesting exchange between them that seemed awkward. But I think the reality is, I guess, for Jason, what I will say is like, if you're going to be somebody who built this reputation of, kind of like calling these people out to the carpet or doing things that, hey, could have been problematic or very much so problematic, you should expect, for certain people not to, find that, find you disingenuous all of a sudden. Like one moment you want to interview people and you want to do all this and, but you've written things and said things about certain people that was, quite frankly, hella problematic. And one could go into saying it's a lie, but that would require more time. But just the basic principle of just some of the things that has come out of this man's mouth. And then seeing him now try to interact with celebrities as if he's a celebrity, which I guess he rightfully so could be. But like the duality of doing those types of things and then expecting for people to somehow just forget about it and just like you, embrace you because somehow this other famous person has co-signed you, so that must make you feel like you're legit. So I for one found it their way. So I didn't really speak to myself as much. I just it's a party, right? It's an event. So you try not to be the sourpuss to be like, hey, you're this, that, and third. You did blah, blah, blah. Instead, you just kind of just observe, you take your picture for receipts. Cause, a lot of y'all were like, Pixar is not true. Even though I will say that in many cases, the way that people get into celebrity culture, how they feel about it, navigating that is very interesting, even in my own little local bubble. But I think I saw it heavily there because there were some people that, we saw, out and about, but I don't know. I think the real challenge for Jason Lee is going to be specifically when it comes to that is navigating how, you built a reputation on like really stirring up mess, and not even mess like political mess, but like just mess that is just so problematic. And then, being that person that some of your fans knew, to then trying to be amongst these like high end A-listers that, quite frankly, if they do something that you don't like, are you beholden to them? Or are you beholden to the public? That's the difference between a journalist and everyone else, because a lot of these people don't even know if they're really journalists or not. They have to ask themselves that question. But I digress. So yeah, I saw him there, which was interesting. But outside of that, after that long day on Saturday, I went home a little earlier that night. First of all, the time zones is somewhat okay. Adjusting to the time zone the first like day or so was a lot, but now I feel a little bit more like, okay, I get the elements now. I get, why I'm here, what I'm doing here, yada, yada, yada. So it works a little bit better. But child, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work adjusting to the these time zones. My goodness. That's the key. But I went to bed early because I knew Sunday was coming, the big day, and I didn't want to miss it. I didn't want to miss it for the world. I wanted to really take this all in and enjoy myself, which is what I did. And just really recognize all the different things, all the different stuff I was exposed to. So it's Sunday, it's Grammy Sunday. That was where my head was at. I had a good time. My mindset was really focused on looking good, killing it. Before I get into Sunday, so my celebrity that I really, really like. So here's some honorable mentions that were there. So J.C. Chavez, who is the greatest singer in NSYNC, he was there signing autographs, just being just overall badass, just a nice guy. I also met Byron Allen, who so many of you all know that I've always been talking about Byron Allen from the very beginning. Byron Allen is this Black entrepreneur media journalist who also sued Comcast that challenged him on fair distribution of franchise agreements and things. So this is a pretty big damn deal of a guy. Been a fan of him for so long, and we just always never got a chance to touch base. So it was really great that I got to see him in person. He was so kind. It was really nice, and that was just a goal for me, like off my checklist, for sure. But who else was great? I mean, outside of my friends I met, I'm trying to think. So my favorite person is definitely Paris Hilton. As far as celebrity I met, like there are things that all I will say about Paris Hilton is I understand even more why she has this like really strong cult following of people who really love her and like her. She leans into that shit. She leans into just loving her fans, loving on her fans. Really, she's going to deck out and dress as glamorous as she wants, but at the same time, she's going to be on a mission. And that night was a masterclass in like how your fans, but at the same time, you still get shit done. So she came with her husband. And when they came, initially, they didn't have the ability to engage with fans a lot. She had to get to point A because they were all there for the Clive Davis dinner. And so everybody was just like trying to get to where they need to go. Because these celebrities be on CPT. They come late. But once dinner was over, all that stuff, she came back out there, child. I had never seen so many paparazzis fall from the sky. But it felt like everyone was a paparazzo at that point. And so she was just gracefully moving through. And as she's trying to get through, she's making sure she takes all her pictures with her fans and she's giving them compliments. And she gave me a compliment. She said that my blazer was hot. And I said, oh my goodness. I know that's her like slogan, but like, oh my goodness. Paris Hilton said that my blazer was hot. But like, yeah, the snakeskin one, which was a big hit. But it just felt good knowing that somebody like that was showing love in that kind of way. So she's just a very strong class act for sure. So yeah, Sunday comes, Sunday morning, I'm getting glammed up. I was definitely into my skincare regimen. I think that was probably like one of the best things that I was happy I invested in before the convention was just really being big on skincare and really just taking care of my grooming, and all of those things matter. Making sure I wasn't wearing perfume, cologne. We talked about that in the previous episode, not the special edition, but the previous episode. And it was just fun to be in that moment, to just know you're on a red carpet, know that there's going to be cameras and all these things, and like looking dressed to impress. And I did not miss a beat. I got up early in the morning, got my face together, got myself together, all cleaned up, and was just rooting for Beyonce. Like that was where my head was at the whole day. I had this lovely fan that I had gotten off of her website when they first came out. I think all her swag is now sold out, maybe not. But I just was in the mindset like, I'm here for this reason, for this moment in history. I mean, I was there for a lot of good other reasons, but I'm thinking about being on that Grammys red carpet. That's where my head was at. I was like, wow, I'm here. This is really happening. Speechless. Just speechless. Speechless in so many different ways, but just taking that moment in. But she's incredible. She's incredible. She's an incredible artist. Trying to get through because I'm slightly emotional about it because I'll get there. So interesting thing is that I went to the full Grammys, which means that this isn't like, okay, so the Grammys have a bunch of categories that most people do not watch. And some people may not even know happened, right? So like, for example, Future got a Grammy, but we didn't see him go up and accept one on stage because it was done during the pre-show. So I was at the pre-show Grammys, which is still fabulous. I mean, they treat the awards just like they treat the regular Grammys, except it's not televised. But it's the same type of energy, same type of attention and acceptance speeches. Everyone gets to go up and accept something, and the crowds are there and there's audiences and everything. So I went to the pre-show, which is the show before the prime time. And like basically you find out what categories they're announcing, what categories they're not announcing on TV. Of course, everybody wants their moment, so they really want to be, they want their category to be on TV, but sometimes the Grammys alternate. So sometimes, like best rap performance isn't going up, but like they'll put best rap album. So they try to stick with the major Grammy, like companies and sponsors, but like it's an interesting positionality basically on everyone wants to be on TV, they want to have their moment. But there's only so many categories that can go, right? So I think the Grammys play it up a certain kind of way where they set things up for the play and then things are just not what they are. But I digress. So I went to the pre-show, met just some really great people that was there, just some fun folks that were just completely, just here for a good time. You could just tell based on what they wear and everything. Like it was just some really great people in the crowd that was just there. and it was not networking and all of that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, especially the pre-show too. So at the pre-show, a great moment happened. Viola Davis won for her audiobook, which is, of course, Finding Me. She had the audiobook, and now she's reached EGOT. She won, and her acceptance speech was through the roof. I mean, her glamour was just on top. Her everything about her was just really, really on point. So that was one major win. Also, watching other categories, following the historic, Beyonce countdown before she breaks the all-time record, which she officially does. But at this point, she had won 2 Grammys prior to the televised show, so I knew coming in she needed 2 more to win. And it was a great, dynamic. And so, yeah. So let's talk about the red carpet in the show. So I get there, red carpet looking good, looking fun, looking fresh. But then I get to the show itself. So the show was, good seats. I had a good situation. I knew I wasn't gonna be on the floor because that's all where nominees are. So we were like, oh well, were you on the floor? This and like, no, regular guests, unless they're nominees or people that are like, agents or something. Most people don't sit on the floor unless they're nominated or they're, a big celebrity name. But everyone else, there's tiers and levels. So I was in a good tier. That was like right, like a little bit up, a couple of rows up before you get to like that pit edge. So I was there, and it was, look, it was good. I mean, as far as a show goes, but there was always this nervousness, like everything was building up to this moment. And you could tell it was building up to this moment. You could tell that this was like some huge enthusiasm. Like, oh my goodness, we're all here. We know what we're here for. Now, I thought Beyonce was going to perform. She did not perform. There were some performances throughout the night. Lizzo was great. Who else did I like? I loved, Brandy Carlisle. A lot of people don't really pay enough attention to her, but she's got that. She's just a badass across the board, but she's just incredible. And she was winning in rock categories. I mean, just outstanding. But I was wondering, where was, they were saying Beyonce was in traffic. I was like, oh, that's BS. They're setting it up so she can perform, but she did not perform. And, I was trying to figure out why. When she won Best Electronic Dance Album, which was a big damn deal, she thanked Uncle Johnny and she shouted out the queer community, which was, a very important time, right? Because a lot of the influence of Renaissance, as you all know, is really inspired by Black queer culture, Black and brown queer culture for sure. I was just, it just melted me just to see her so happy when she finally did break that record. So Beyonce's now the only artist in Grammy history with, basically she had surpassed an older classical musician who was around for over a decade. And so that work. So, how do I start this? Because I know this is part of it, like, that I'm thinking about. Like, how do I want to address, is it the elephant in the room? But more so, I think for me, looking at everything in totality, we're there. Trevor Noah is the host. Everything's built on this entire impression that there's going to be this really great grand finale. I mean, that was how it was being spoken about across the board. That this was something that everyone was building up anticipation for. Like Trevor Noah kept hinting it. You just kind of knew this was going to be a night that she was going to win a Grammy for Album of the Year. She was going to break this all-time record. But that didn't happen. I mean, she did break the all-time record, which is great. But in her entire career, she's only won, I guess, let me see. I think it's several different things that was taking place, but I'm reviewing and just looking at when did things start getting odd, at least in the room. So the first part was this whole Beyonce was in traffic, and then there was these weird photo shoots, which are not weird now if you don't take them, if you take them out of context. But she had these photos of her with like 3 Grammys, but they weren't labeled. And in other words, I think that Beyonce was almost preparing for where the conversation was headed. And I think in some ways she was being strategic and not making it be so fixated on album year, even though, her agent, Yvette, who is an icon, who's a legendary publicist, who's been with Beyonce for a very long time, definitely on social media was sharing, these articles. There's a really great article that came out in the Los Angeles Times, basically online, is that the Grammys only have one job to do, and that's pretty much to give Beyonce album of the year. And so they made this, this just strong case, for why this should have happened. Well, at that point, why it should happen, because at this point we were all, had our fingers crossed and was really hoping for the best. But before I get into that moment, I mean, the awards was doing pretty well. I mean, I guess, when you're at a award show live, it's going to have a different feeling anyway. There's going to be this natural sense that everything is alive and well. There were some major highlights. Kim Petras, who's featured on the song Unholy, starring Sam Smith. They won, the collaborative pop Grammy win for that song. And, Sam Smith did something very nice. They basically when they won the award, when they won the Grammy, just gave the mic to Kim. And Kim, talked about how she made history with this, with this win as a openly transgender artist. And that was a big deal. That was like just witnessing history being made that way was very touching. I would say the hip hop collaboration with all the different hip hop artists from over the past 50 years, contributing and giving their own, just giving their own energy. Like, it was interesting to see all of these different songs and how hip hop has evolved. Glorilla at the end, singing, F and F, which is her big Grammy nominated single track. She didn't win. She lost to, I believe she lost to Kendrick for performance. If it was performance, I believe it was Kendrick. If it was song, she lost to Wait for It or Wait for Me by Tim's, a Future featuring Tim's. And so she was just there for a good time. But that was a major thing. There was also like the Motown tribute, which included Stevie Wonder, and that had its own, excitement around that. There was just some good people winning across the board. Adele really only won one Grammy, which was for best pop vocal performance for Easy on Me, which was a fair win. Who else won something? Beyonce broke the all-time record of having the most Grammy wins than any other artist out and about, which was a big deal. She had to get 4 wins tonight, which she did. But she didn't get that 5th one that people wanted her for. But, that was a moment just following each night, like each win. There was a lot of attention and spotlight on her in a way that was, basically this show was on for her back. Like, she almost carried this show arguably with her back. That's what a lot of people were there to witness. Once they found out she was going to be making an appearance, it even got more so like, wow, this is a lot of work, and this is serious. But yeah, the performances overall I thought were really good. thought everybody brought their energy. It was a really lively show. Being there in person, I can only imagine what people was thinking when they're watching all these surprises unfold on TV. Um, but that aspect of the show was great. I wasn't complaining then. It wasn't until pretty much the end where this album of the year, and throughout the whole night, they had all of these like fans arguing in favor of their album over the other. They were like basically stands of the album process of like basically their favorite artists, which were all these nominees, each one of them, and they were trying to make the case for why they felt like, for example, Mary J. Blige should win album of the year, and they were doing that same thing like with the different artists. So um Trevor Noah, who was the host, which he was pretty good. His jokes weren't like extremely off-putting or cringy. I don't remember who it was who was hosting a show. Like I like Gerard, Carmichael, great comedian is all right, but not a word show. Like there's just something about the way that Trevor Noah hosts. He has TV hosting experiences, but something about the way he does award shows, he finds this great balance. I mean, they should put him up for the Oscars. Maybe he should host the Oscars compared to Jimmy Kimmel. Like, oh my goodness. But, he's coming again, so whatever. But it's nice that there's alternatives, and there's Black alternatives for that point. So Trevor Noah was overall a good host. So the ending comes really where throughout the whole show, they drag this moment. At the moment you're waiting for, album of the year, everybody's all excited because, record of the year, song of the year, those are really shocking wins. Like no one saw, at least from the people I spoke to, Academy, recording Academy members and folks like that, I didn't hear any of them, be like, no, absolutely not for her, or other artists, that like who's been nominated in the past. It wasn't. It was something about just the overall energy. Like no one seemed to be, like, I don't know. Like it was almost like everyone. I don't know. Everyone came together, and I think was pretty much in their mindset like, we know who's going to win album of the year. Like, if you actually betting person in that room, I think most people would have betted on Beyonce, and if not Beyonce, they definitely was like, oh, it's gonna be Bad Bunny. Like that, I think that was like the conversation I was having. Like everyone was like, it's either gonna be Bad Bunny or it's gonna be Beyonce. Like both of those albums had a cultural significant impact. One would argue, if you're trying to be objective with this, but you can't be, because the Academy, Recording Academy, any of these awards groups, they are humans. They have emotions, they have feelings, so they will vote for people they have connections with, close to, like, or whatever the case is. It's a big academy, and it's not as diverse, as largely diverse as people assume based on their stats. But people thought they were going an upswing. I mean, the type of wins they had, tonight and what was televised. I mean, Kendrick got some love. He won in the hip hop categories. You had, of course, Beyonce doing her thing and being fabulous. But you had like so many different, people that I think this would have been the year. This would have been the year, given all the new changes to the rules. They made 10, nominations, slots for more artists to feel represented their work to be. They took out these special committees in certain categories that was also causing people stress. But with all the changes, all the things, Harry Styles won. He won album of the year. And the reaction from the section I was in was very, very much so. There was someone yelling Beyonce and someone yelling, Beyonce should have won. I felt that way. I personally did. I was shocked in the crowd. There were people in the crowd that was just like going ham. And it was a different feeling at the end, because it was right before the performance with Jay-Z, which and DJ Khaled, who did they did a song called God Did. So it was this different type of energy coming into it. But I think everyone was in this mindset. I don't know, the way the program was created, it just seemed like everyone was creating it around this big moment. a moment that never came. And so people were just upset. And it was also weird because with Harry's, when Harry Styles won for Harry's House, which we talked about, I never saw him winning album of the year. That was definitely not on the bingo card. It was just too many, it was just so much good. I would just say there was so much competition that I just thought that that was one of the weaker albums compared to everything else that was out. Just my opinion. I felt like, look, Bad Bunny. I mean, Adele, I felt like shouldn't have won, but I mean, if you're going to talk about like raw talent, I thought that Adele was definitely could be in conversation because of her past. But again, even Brandy Carlisle had a more interesting story. I just felt like there was nothing like if you're talking about pop albums, right? That were game changers. I would say Future Nostalgia by Dua Lipa. I mean, at the time when that album came out, I mean, she was going against, Taylor Swift for Folklore, which was these are both albums that came out during the pandemic at the start. I could see why she would be excited and she would probably think, she might have a chance because of just the nature, right? But that didn't seem the same thing with Harry. So when he won, he went up and accepted his speech. He said something along the lines of, stuff like this doesn't happen to people like me. What do you mean? You are a cishet white young man who has wealth and power. I don't see how you could, for whatever reason, assume that those types of moments don't happen for people that look like you based on your privilege. It just was the most interesting set of words being said, and I just would say that people will move the goalpost. They will create the goalpost. They'll move the goalpost every time. One time they'll say, "Well, this album sold a lot," and it's like there have been times where Beyonce's like, Beyonce's self-titled album was that blockbuster album that outsold everything that was walking at the time. And the argument there was, oh, Beyonce's just too commercial. She's too popular. We need an artist that can, I wouldn't say dumb themselves down, but just an artist that's about the craft and the artistry, yada, yada, yada. So then she, she gave us Lemonade. She gave us these albums that were completely different. And yet and still, despite the fact that they were critically acclaimed, had the best reviews than most artists that came out, in 2022, it just seemed like this was it. And it wasn't. And a lot of fans, for different reasons, expressed it themselves on social media, some at the Grammys themselves, but I think the reality is that, hey, I don't know. I want to say that some people who are trying to act like, oh, it's a big deal that people are upset or people shouldn't be upset. Look, it's Black History Month. We're not going to do that today. That's just what I'm going to say. People have a right to be disappointed. People have a right to be critical of institutions that, praises themselves and trying to push diversity and equity. But when it comes to one particular situation, a certain group keeps getting underrepresented. Like, what's happening there? What's the voting bloc? What's the base? And I'm talking both politically and also within these organizations. Like, how many of these people are able to be voting members? They're professional members, but how many of them get to vote? And when you look at some of the cards and messages coming back from people who were participating in the voting process, some of the stuff that was said was ageist. It was definitely anti-Black towards Beyonce. Some of the remarks and comments about, someone said reportedly, and this is someone who spoke anonymously, but they were like a voter, and they said something like, oh, it seems like every time, Beyonce comes out, everybody has to have a moment. There has to be this. And it's just like, well, you don't say that about Taylor Swift. You don't say it about Adele. All these women are building up momentum for themselves and building up their, actual fan base. So it was kind of hypocritical. Then, like I said, it just keeps moving the goalposts, right? Oh, the album needs to be more musically inclined. I mean, how does it get any less when you listen to an album like Renaissance, right? She really put her heart into producing and really in doing that work. And Yeah. Yeah. I just, it was interesting. Following that event and then going to the after party was a lot because what was interesting, and people were just making excuses saying this and third, but you weren't there, right? Like inside that room, you could hear the energy shift. You could feel it. And people were just leaving way too early. And when people were saying, oh, they were trying to get out of LA traffic, no, there was an after party. People just left. People really left. I saw visibly like there were some black women attendees, and I remember seeing this lady just got up and left, and she just like, oh, I'm leaving. I'm over this. Like there was like mass exodus of people, and yeah, granted, okay, cars traffic, but like the reason why I'm also skeptical of that notion to some degree, like yeah, granted, there may have been people getting cars, but the after party, the official Grammys after party, was followed like right in that same building. So to leave the same building is to forfeit the after party as well, which means you didn't want to attend both, even though, you might have gotten tickets, you was able to access both. I thought that was interesting. But then again, I digress, right? Because at the end of the day, it was, right? So this was my first ever Grammys. And I would say overall that the overall weekend was phenomenal. It was definitely a moment to remember. I am still unpacking some of the cool connections, relationships I forged down here. Some of the people I got to see. Shout out to one of my friends from high school that still lives in LA. His name is Pedro. We connected and got to just talk about life and high school and high school back then and how we're doing great in our own respective fields now. So that was great to just be in LA to get the different energy. And it is a different feel from Philly. Love them both. I love Philly. Every time I go to LA, I always have a great time. Like the last time I was here, I was interviewing Oprah, went on red carpet events. This time I'm at the Grammys. Before both of those events, I was the BET Awards back in 2014. So every time I'm going to LA, there was always some iconic thing or some opportunity. And so I will always be grateful to the city of Los Angeles for that. But that being said, right, going to the after party, it was just a somber mood. A lot of those producers and engineers and people that was excited about, Beyonce, they said, look, they were happy they had won other Grammys that night because she was, of course, she has a lot of songwriters, people that collaborate with her. So these people were recipients of a Grammy for the best electronica album they helped produce. They were happy for that win. It was a nice win. They now can call themselves Grammy award winning, engineers and people like that. But that album of the year would have I think, would have done wonders for some of them that was there. And it was interesting because there was similar conversations of like people just being in shock or disappointed or just sad about it all and reflecting on it. And the energy on Twitter and the energy from others online, shared different thoughts and views that were some made sense and some I was like, huh. But overall, there was just a sense of just like, it's been, I think they said 24 years since a black woman has won. There's only been 3 women in Grammy history. That is Nat King Cole, or daughter Natalie Cole, who won for Unforgettable in the mid '90s, early '90s. Then you had Whitney Houston, who won for the Bodyguard soundtrack, which was in that early mid '90s range. And then near the turn of the century, around '99, Lauryn Hill wins for the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which is a pretty big damn deal. And since then, we have not seen any black women win. Only 3 have won. And so I don't know what the future looks like in that regard, right? We know SZA's dropping SOS. Everyone's talking about Taylor Swift Midnights, about how that's going to be the big, big old draw as far as it goes for Grammys. But I also think she's going to be doing her job, right? All of them, right, who have their campaigns, SZA's going to be having her job. She's going to be pushing this. I definitely can see this getting nominated for Album of the Year, SOS, because of just how earth-shattering it's been. Like 7 to 8 weeks, #1 on the charts. I mean, it's going in the right direction. Everything about it spells a nice front runner, but it's just something about the Academy, like just the Recording Academy. Just whatever reason they do right by Beyonce in so many different ways, but when it comes to album of the year, that's the one they just kind of hold over her head. And it's being felt by fans. It's being felt by the public. I mean, many media outlets are criticizing and reviewing it and just saying that the event was just took a different spin once, she was ready to leave. And I sensed it. I think they sensed it. But, they said that, Ernest Young are, I guess, the people who hold the votes and no one knows in advance. And, Trevor Noah tried to put that up front. But imagine just being in that position where you're thinking you're going to win, or people are anticipating your win and hyping you up throughout the night, make you feel special, only for you to get played in your face yet again. I thought four times was a charm. It was to help her break the record, but real Beyonce fans who've been following her career know that this is just. I'll leave it at that. It was very interesting, very telling. But overall, what I will say in reflection, I'm going to be on a Scorpion show with Kevin and Mikhail talking a little bit about this more in depth. But I wanted to just express the raw reaction shortly after this. My perspective might change by the next podcast episode when I do like a general episode. I won't delve into my entire LA trip, of course, on there. That's why we had the special edition. But I did want to encapsulate my initial thoughts of what happened on Sunday night, and just tell people that you can be a part of the change in different ways. If you're a recording artist and you're someone who's looking to be a part of the voting academy, take some time to do that research. Look up chapters. There is a Philadelphia chapter. If there's credits that you have, are you in a position where you can qualify? There's a process, but we definitely need more people to be leaning into service, because that, I think, is how you build that capacity. Not to say just for to win Grammys or whatever, but just as professional development goes. There's not enough A&E or A&R, A&R, sorry. There's not a lot of that anymore, which I think plays a role in some of the ways that artists are presenting themselves and yada, yada, yada. But there's just a lot of opportunities where I think we, as a community, can step in to offset some of these hypocrisies. That's just what I think where the energy is going to go. How do we change it? And not necessarily for Beyonce to win, because who knows if she's going to give us another album anytime soon. To be honest, if I was her, I would just be like, okay. And then just keep it moving. What would it look like? We see what happened when The Weeknd left the Academy. He's doing his thing. He's got his fans. He's doing it. The Weeknd knew about this. He told all of us. And I think we just thought, well, that's just him. But when you think about it, in what world does no Grammy nominations for The Weeknd exist after an album like After Hours? It was one of the top albums during the pandemic. In my opinion, Blinding Lights should be, a record a year easily, right? But that wasn't the hand, So when he faced that major snub like that, it made him be pushing the Academy a little bit more, and other people for different reasons. But I just say all that to say that, this week Beyonce will be selling tickets to a world tour that Harry Styles could never, right? He would love to. I think he thinks his goals, but he would never. I think her not winning just makes you even begin to recognize, just if it's harder like this for her to be giving her roses, imagine how other artists are. It's just a lot of different things that come into play that happens, and the biases that happen in the way that it does, right? We wouldn't be having this conversation if Beyonce was white. We wouldn't be. We would not be. And there's many people that will say, oh, well, she's got the most wins. Well, if most of your wins are just in these segregated categories, Versus she was only one in a general, category, which is says a lot. She won Song of the Year for Single Ladies. And that was her only general category. Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Best New Artist, all those other categories she never won. She only won that one specifically. So, in many ways, it's bittersweet. She broke the record, which is an incredible record to break. It was breaking news on New York Times, which is really awesome. But, that being said, there'll be conversations that will happen this week about how the Grammys are failing Black women in art, how these types of award shows as a whole are dying, in their own ways. And to some degree, rightfully so, because when you think about the world we live in today and the contributions that Black women make to them, there should be no reason why they're still being regulated in a box and being separated and segregated when it comes to who's being honored and what. Especially when you look at some of these artists that are jacking off the swag, the culture, the ingenuity, the originality of other artists, and then trying to make it a mainstream thing for themselves. It's just despicable. It just is. And so you can either be mad or you can get strategic. That's what I've always tell people. Don't be mad, be strategic. Be mad at the moment, right? That's legit feelings. I was upset, but at the end of the day, be strategic. Find out ways to really volunteer, especially if you're based in like Philadelphia, LA, or whatever, or just a music listener, or just someone who decides, maybe we shouldn't put too much weight on Grammys as much, whatever the case is. But there should just be different conversations, I think, that needs to be had following this. And I'm curious to see what the president thinks, who is a Black man, who has worked in the past on projects for Destiny's Child, I believe, back in the day. I wonder how he feels about it. So, we'll see on that. But as far as everything else goes, I'm super excited to be coming back home, come back to Philly. I'm super excited about that. Cause I do to a certain extent. I think when you're like out of town, you enjoy it for all of it, but then you realize, okay, it's time to go back home, to hubby, to, my close friends, to cooler weather. I kind of miss a little bit of cool weather. This weather's like too summery, and it's messing with my head because now, I gotta go back home and I'm just gonna be like, oh my goodness, like this is night and day. So, but I don't know if I want summer weather like all year round. I don't know. I don't want it to be too cold though, but still, But I thought this was just a really needed podcast. I just wanted to just debrief and, let out my raw thoughts. I'll like I said, a day or so, I'll be a little bit more cool, calm, and collected and reflecting on it differently. We'll find out new things probably. There'll be new stuff to be said about this whole situation. But until then, as always, be well and be best.
Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.